Good evening, everyone. It's Education Week. Welcome to a special edition of Spanning the Need. Tonight's episode, we'll be talking about how local schools all over the state of Ohio will be opening up and what precautions they are to take care of our students and our staff this fall. With me tonight is Ron Iarussi, Superintendent of Marion City Schools and from near Columbus, just outside of Columbus, and Tim Saxton, Superintendent, Boardman Local Schools near Youngstown, Ohio. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen. How are you guys?
Excellent.
Yeah, doing well.
Excellent.
Doing well. All things considered, we're doing okay.
Well, we got a lot to cover in a short period of time. Ron, let's start with you. You're just outside of Columbus. So what have you guys, give us a little background about kind of just where you've been and how you kind of got to where you are now.
Yeah. First, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, especially alongside with my good friend Tim Saxton, who I had a chance to work with a lot when I was in Mahoning County. So, been in Marion now for 2 years. Just starting the third year here. Spent a lot of time, in Mahoning Valley as the ESC superintendent and Career Tech Center superintendent. Had an opportunity to come down to Marion. We had some experience with Marion when I was the Career Tech Center superintendent. We'd actually partnered on a grant together, and so when they had a vacancy here, had some conversations. So really enjoying my time here in Marion. It's a district. It's an urban district that struggles with some trauma and some poverty and those kinds of things. So it's a lot of good transformation work, and we're really taking some really good steps, I think, in the right direction to help increase our opportunities for our students here in Marion. So, yeah, just finished up my second year and starting this third year. I don't think anybody ever thought that we'd be faced with a pandemic, and the things that we are, the decisions that we're making are something that, we're not accustomed to. It's unprecedented. But down here in Marion, too, we have a good network of superintendents, and our ESC does a really good job of coordinating conversations. So there's a lot of resources available to us. So I'm thankful and grateful for that.
And Tim, you've been at Boardman, and give us a little bit of background about you.
I'm finishing my fourth year as superintendent. It's hard to believe I say that. It's gone pretty quick. I came to Boardman in 2002 as high school principal. Spent 11 years as high school principal, loved it. And then we had a transition plan. Mr. Lazzari was superintendent. Part of our transition plan was to have me come to central office. Took the director of operations position for 3 years, which was great. Learned maintenance, transportation, food services, and the whole operations side. Did that for 3 years and got a chance to study under Mr. Lazzari. Then I took over as superintendent back in 2016. I'm actually a Boardman grad. Just haven't been here all my life. I did go teach up in Cleveland at Bedford City Schools for 8 years and taught and coached up there. Married my beautiful wife, Gina, and we moved back here to the Mahoning Valley to raise our family. And I actually was at Canfield for 6 years where I coached, taught, and went into administration. So, and just like Ron said, thanks for having us on. It's I think I'm finally at the point where you feel a little more comfortable talking about plans. I mean, there's so many things that you just don't know. And 4 weeks ago, it was hard to talk about it, but as we get closer, it just feels like more pieces are falling in place, but there's still a lot of questions.
And I think that's what we want to talk about because we are now right up against the start of fall. I know a lot of schools have moved their schedule to either end of August, beginning of September. And let's go with you, Tim. Tim, we talked a little bit off that you have moved your schedule.
Yep.
And tell me a little bit about what you've learned over the last 3 to 4 weeks and what kind of plan that you're going to have in place for the fall for your students and staff.
First, probably the biggest thing we learned is don't count on your decision being permanent because there is nothing permanent. We could be talking right now, and when this is over, something could have changed. So that's the one thing you absolutely have to be flexible. You have to be. You cannot be set in stone in any plan. You have to be able to evolve. You have to be able to evolve quickly. You have to think differently. We wanted to survey our parents. We wanted to have open and honest dialogue with our staff, and we wanted to plan. Number one was safety in mind, and then once we had safety, Number two would be make sure the quality of education, whatever path was delivered, was top notch and up to the Boardman community expectations. So we offered several different plans to the Board of Education. We looked at a 5-person, we looked at a hybrid, we looked at a fully remote, and present all those plans, present the pros and cons, showed the survey results. The board blessed a 5-day in-person launch with a fully remote option for parents who were not comfortable with the 5-day in-person model.
And let's talk about that real quick. And you almost your enrollment is 4,100 kids in the Boardman Local Schools. That's correct? Mm-hmm. So you have multiple buildings to pretty much try to make safe.
Absolutely. And they're all different style. Center Middle School there's parts of Center Middle School over 100 years old. Try putting Wi-Fi in a building like that has plaster and metal mesh in the walls. So every building's a little bit different. We got 3 elementaries. We have intermediate, junior high, and high school. It's a little different flavor in each building.
And let's go to you, Ron. Ron, you're pretty much almost on the same plan. You're kind of at the 2 options. Talk a little bit about kind of your challenges and what you've learned and where you're going.
Well, I'm going to go back a ways, back to June, when I was asked to kind of serve on a county-wide task force, if you will, with some county leaders in the Marion Public Health Department. And so back in June, if you recall, Ohio had kind of done a really good job with flattening the curve. And we thought, that we were headed in a good direction. And so our health department said at that point that, we should expect to open up school in the fall, full on face-to-face. And there would be some guidelines to follow and to make sure that we were following certain protocols. So, that, and they also recommended at that point that, the virus was still going to probably be here and that we needed to make sure that we provided an option for those families and students that were vulnerable or just really didn't feel comfortable with coming back on that face-to-face. So we spent, pretty much all of June and half of July preparing for that scenario. And so, really the 5 protocols that we were given is that every student had to have a daily assessment. We had to have hand washing protocols. We had to have daily cleaning protocols. We had to make sure that kids were, at that point, they called it physical distancing because I don't care what anybody says. It's really tough to social distance and say 6 feet apart, in a traditional setting. Our middle school has 1,000 kids. So, so to be able to do that was difficult, but we were preparing for, making sure that we were physical distancing and kids weren't touching each other. And then we had to come up with a face covering policy. At that point, it really wasn't a mandate. But so those are the types of things that we were preparing for. And we introduced to our Board of Education our reopening plan based on that information that we got from the health department. Ironically, 3 days before was our next task force meeting. And at that point, we started to see things change not only in Ohio, but across the country as far as the number of cases that, were increasing. And so, part of the issue with us here in Marion is we actually saw some increases in adolescent cases. So, children under the age of 18, we had somewhat of an increase, not a significant amount, but that was an area of concern. So at that point, we were told that we should probably be looking at some kind of hybrid model. And what the hybrid model is all about is the ability to do more social distancing. So if our hybrid model is about 50% of our kids being in a building on any given day. So a class size now in an elementary building is probably going to be about 10 or 11, 12 kids as opposed to 24, 25 kids. And we can do a much better job of social distancing and the mask requirements and those types of things. So, after we kind of introduced our model as being full on, we continued to monitor and have conversations with our health department. And so as of today, we are still planning on opening in the hybrid model. So our kids are grouped in groups A, B, and C. They're grouped alphabetically. Groups A will be in on Monday and Tuesday. Groups B will be in on Thursday and Friday. Wednesday will shut down completely for, some really good cleaning and giving our teachers an opportunity to really do some planning. And then we have a group C, which is kind of our vulnerable students with special needs and who really need to be in school. So those students will be in 4 days a week, but typically those students have really smaller class sizes. So again, we're able to social distance with those students. And so that's kind of where we're at with our plan. We also pushed our start date back. We were actually scheduled to start on Monday. And so our official start date for us will be August 31st.
And you talk about your hybrid and in-person or your online. What's your percentage to online versus hybrid?
Yeah, good question. We have 1,200 students that signed up out of our 4,500 for our online option. And so we'll open the year with probably 25% of our students will be online.
Now, is that K to 12 or just the high school?
No, that's K to 12. So and we've assigned a teacher to all of our students that are online, and we're using a learning platform it's a little bit different in the elementary as opposed to the middle and high school. But the learning management system also has some content, so our teachers basically are monitoring progress that our kids are making with really an online platform.
And I know, Tim, the deadline for sign up was July 31st, if I'm not correct.
It was originally.
Oh,
yeah.
It got extended?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We wanted to get stuff out to parents, and so we gave them a good framework to make their decision upon. Our mistake was for parents to make a good decision, they need more than a framework. So we filled in some of the details of that framework with the knowledge we had at that time and pushed that date back. So they were actually due last Friday. That was the postmark date. We did get a bunch more. We're pretty close to that same percent. We probably have about 1,100, so we're probably a little higher. This a little higher percent than Ron, but not quite 30. But we predicted 20 to 25. We're probably somewhere around 26 right now. 27 could grow if we have any more late entries.
Let me ask you this, and this is just a question. Students that are online, and any of you can jump in, will that affect your state funding because they're not actually in the classroom? Okay.
No. And we were required to have a remote learning plan that we actually have to submit to the Ohio Department of Education.
Correct.
We still need to meet the hour requirements, and we have to have a plan in place for those students to be able to do that. We have to monitor that. So, our requirements are still intact.
And here's a number for you. The numbers just came out earlier today that out of all the school districts, and we talked a little bit about this, is 325 school districts in the state of Ohio are going to go back full time as of right now. This is as of today, or I would say about a week data.
Okay.
55 are online or remote, and 154 are hybrids. A little bit of in-person and a little bit of online learning. And that's the sources Department of Education for the state of Ohio. So that gives a pretty good idea of where people are going. I mean, we just had an announcement that another school district is going all online. So what has changed from when you started to now? I'll go to Tim.
What has changed when you say since we released that initial plan? Or
correct?
All the conditions have changed. Obviously, you see the Cuyahoga County schools, I believe, have made a move to go to remote. As you know, a local school not too far away has gone to remote. Really, I can tell you at Boardman what's changing is the more you put your plan to paper to details, the harder it becomes. Food services, tremendous hurdle. Obviously, your costs are just going through the roof. We had originally had a budget, I want to say, about $300,000 for PPE and other safety devices. We're probably closer to $600,000 now because of plexiglass and other items. And cafeteria's got to take a look at food coverings, how to serve students, how not to have kids come down in a congregate style. Our cafeterias are used to packing 300 kids in. You can't do that. So you got to buy more tables to put other places. So, I mean, you start actually putting the details to paper and actually thinking what the life of a kid's going to look like and start thinking about the actual logistics and processes when you open up, not the theoretical. There's layers. And, boy, you just got to start making decisions, about safety, expenses, and is this the right choice? So that's kind of what's changing. We're getting closer to pulling pull the open on the first day of school, and you really start thinking about the real details.
And I think that talks a little bit about what you guys are going through, how you're just going through money like water. And Ron, talk a little bit about what you guys are doing too. Or you're probably in the same boat.
Well, the unfortunate thing for Marion City is we have a very poor population. We have a high free and reduced lunch. The fortunate thing is we have a poor population and high and free and reduced lunch, so we're eligible for, we're probably going to get about $1.6 million in, CARES Act money and some other, and we need it. We really do. I mean, our kids really struggled in the spring with remote learning. We had a lot of our students, probably about 25% of our students, that really struggled with internet access. They struggled with access to devices. We gave out every single Chromebook that we had in the district available. We are spending $800,000 of that CARES Act money to provide Chromebooks for our students this year, which is a good thing. I mean, we need to be one-to-one, and we need to integrate more technology, so we're taking advantage of that. But most of those dollars are spent, preparing for this year, really, not knowing where we'll end up. Maybe we will end up having to be completely remote. And so if all of our kids have Chromebooks and they have hotspots now with access to internet, we're much better prepared than we. You got to remember, I mean, we were given basically 4 days to prepare for, the entire spring when we were notified that schools would be closing. And, I'll give a lot of credits to superintendents and staffs and teachers across the state of Ohio and across the country who really did a really good job and did the best they could to provide, access to education during that time. I feel like we're a little bit more prepared and we have some dollars to be able to do that. But, like Tim said, there's, food service, which typically are, your food service department's really, you're on deficit spending all the time. I mean, you're flatlined. You don't have extra dollars to go spend, and you're, pinching every penny you can with that. And so, the change in that and bringing on more staff to be able to help with those kinds of things is part of those financial decisions. And we have to make sure, we still have to sustain our budgets long term. I mean, we're going to be here for a couple of years, and eventually this is going to dissipate at some point. I hope sooner than later. But we have to make sure we have a budget in place still that we can sustain once our kids are back. And let me say this too. I mean, I'm sure Tim feels the same way. We want our kids back in school. I mean, we know the importance. In my community, our kids need to be in school. A big portion of our community, our kids are at risk right now when they're home and they don't have school. They don't have a place to get their food and their safety and their comfort and those kinds of things. So we're going to do everything we can. And once the health department says we're good to go, I mean, we're not committed to long-term hybrid or anything like that. Because if our health department, if our trends continue here in Marion, and our health department says we're good to go, we'll be back full on.
Well, I think that brings up a great point is that how many reduced lunches are in your district, Ron?
Well, we're 100% free and reduced. So we're a very high poverty district. And, the kids, the median income in Marion is probably $28,000 per family.
So almost roughly the same as maybe a Youngstown City Schools. And Tim, what about you?
A couple things here. Our free and reduced lunch is low 40s, like 42%, I want to say. Obviously, that's probably going to change this year because of the financial climate. If they talk about Ron and the CARES money he got, he said $1.6 million.
Mm-hmm.
Boardman's considered a wealthy district. We got $250,000.
Right.
Yeah. So I always say we're property rich. If you drive through Boardman, absolutely. If you're going to build a restaurant or a shopping place, you're going to build it in Boardman. There's some beautiful houses here. But I would say we're income average, and so that income piece, that's what hurts us. It's not heavily weighted in the funding form, and that can be a whole different time spent talking about that. I don't want to get into the weeds on that.
We'll be here all night.
Yeah. I mean, we have a great diversity, and that's a strength at Boardman. I tell new teachers, you're going to be teaching kids in class. A new teacher, you can have a kid who lives in a $40,000 house, and you can have a kid who lives in a $400,000 house. You got to teach them both, and that's the beauty of Boardman. There's strength in that, but that's Boardman.
Well, and I think that brings up a good point. Is the state even cut everyone's budget? in, I would say, May, maybe.
Yep.
And I know Boardman lost, correct me if I'm wrong, I think about $700,000 to $800,000.
Yep.
Is that about right?
Yes.
And did you lose any, Ron?
Yeah, we lost about. We're in that in that bottom tier again. So all of those cuts were made, and they were kind of prorated to where you're at with your free and reduced and your poverty level. So, but we lost about 550,000, which again, and people don't realize, that cut is actually extending through this fiscal year. Now It's cut out during the whole year. It's not in one quarter. But it's still, a $500,000 cut is a $500,000 cut, and so we have, we just can't brush it off and sustain it. Now, we did save some money in the spring. We didn't transport students and those kinds of things, but so we ended up probably with a deficit after all said and done of that 550,000. I think we were a deficit probably about 200,000 of that. So because we were able to make up some, and no subs, no. Transportation and those kinds of things. So,
Tim, same with you, pretty much.
Yeah. Go back to what Ron's saying. Obviously, you saw savings in fuel and overtime, field trips, and we had a nice built-in savings. And last summer we closed an elementary, which is a very emotional and passionate thing for a district. And we laughed because we said we can't wait till this summer because we won't be dealing with something like that. And so our head of operations says, "Don't you ever say that again." But the nice thing is, we're seeing about a $500,000 savings. Obviously, we want to put that into infrastructure because of how old our infrastructure is. But we're going to have to put that into PPE and other safety upgrades. And with the savings we had. So I'd say we broke even with that 800,000 we took out, but we're spending, and obviously we'll get some CARES money. I'm like Ron said, we say the best investment we can do is technology right now. We're buying about 2,000 Chromebooks. We should be able to go 1-to-1 with our 7th through 12th graders because no matter what happens, that's a great investment. Whether you're in person, remote, fully remote, that's a really good investment. I'm not saying plexiglass isn't, but because safety, there's no price we can put on safety. But maybe a year from now or 2 years from now, we won't need plexiglass like we need it now, but Chromebooks will always be used.
And I've talked to some superintendents and some principals that saying they have planned to get Chromebooks for people in the next 5 years, but this just kind of rushed their plan a little bit where they had a hard time finding money. But like you said, there was savings to find.
Right. And you probably have a hard time right now finding Chromebooks. Something you asked, I probably didn't answer in much depth, was that 2-week delay. There's multiple reasons. One is to get all our materials in, get them in place, get everything set up, and make sure it is ready to go. So we wanted to buy some time. That was number one. Number two was we wanted to make sure our teachers were absolutely prepared for remote and the dual platform, the in-person and the remote learning, because our teachers are going to end up doing both. And we want to make sure that they're ready to go, had all the professional development. So we felt that 2 weeks. And the other issue we have, Center Middle School, over 100 years old, 3rd floor. Last year, there was temperatures above 95 degrees in some of those classrooms. I can tell you put a mask on outside, even here in Ohio, for a half hour in 95-degree weather, it's not going to work. I can't put kids in masks in a classroom that's 95 degrees for a school day. So we probably would have to shut buildings down in those first 2 weeks of September. We're hoping that second half of September, you get the cooler nights, you get that hot air out during the night, bring that cooler air in the morning. So when teachers come in, it's very cool in the room. All those bodies do warming up, but by the end of the day, it's still pretty bearable. But you start in September or August, and you have those warm nights, you can't turn that air over temperature-wise. You can turn over freshness-wise, but you can't get that hot air out and get that cool night air in.
And that's a very, very old building.
Yes, yeah. Great building. Very well maintained, and but we're getting everything we can out of it.
Well, let me talk. Let's talk, Tim. Let's go further. What should kids, parents, and staff expect when they come the first day of school? Well, if they're coming in to learn,
if they're coming in person, things will absolutely be different. You got to throw away your old routines. We're not going to line 15 buses up in a parking lot and then teachers come out and all 15 buses release. Not going to do that. Buses will drop off as they come in. Kids, there'll be markings in the hallway, which side of the hallway to go on. kids will be reporting directly to classrooms. Obviously, parents, we're expecting parents to go through a whole protocol before they put a kid on the bus or bring them to school. And that includes, temperature checks and symptom checks. That's that trust piece. Everything we build is built on trust. That's that fundamental cement that's gluing the whole foundation of our plans together. So we got to trust parents are going to do their part. Parents are trusting that we do our part. So they're going to have to do that, then come to school and trust that our safety protocols are in place. Moving to classes will be different. Going to lunch will be different. Recess will look different. Gym's going to look different. And it will vary grade level. So can't give you I can go on forever about all the different grades, but everything's going to be different, and kids are going to have to break old habits. They're going to be kids. They want to hang out. I get it, but they're going to have to be careful. They got to physically distance, like Ron said.
Will when I go to Boardman's Local Schools this coming fall, will the parents have to do the temperature check at home, or
Yes.
will the school do it when they come in?
No, obviously that's a great question. Every school's doing it differently. We believe that we got to put faith and trust in parents, and that's a parent responsibility. We personally believe, and I'm not critiquing any school that's doing it. I don't know if Ron's checking them at the door, but I worry about checking the doors too late. That kid's already made close contacts, and now we got to get them home. So the parents got to do their part. No plan's perfect, but that's where the parent trust comes in. Before they put them on a bus, check them out. If they're showing those symptoms, keep them home.
Will masks be required in the classroom and in the school?
Absolutely. We hadn't required before the state did. We were going K through 12, but we know that's going to be tough. But we asked our teachers to build into their instructional design breaks when appropriate and socially distant appropriate. We cannot put desks 6 feet apart in every classroom, but we can get them 3 feet apart. We can get kids in masks or face shields or both, and we can get plexiglass on desks. And so we're comfortable with a minimum of 3 to a maximum of 6.
Now, are you recommending what types of masks they're wearing?
At this time, we'll follow the governor's guidance. They should have a cloth mask, but we will at this time, and unless there's some mandate that trumps what we believe, we will allow face shields too, or both. But our teachers definitely. We have teachers that need to teach phonics, and young students need to see facial structures, read emotion. I know a lot of our staff will go with we've ordered 600 face shields for staff, so they'll go with face shields, and some may go face shields and masks.
So okay, and the children will basically be responsible for getting those masks to come to school. If a kid doesn't have one, you'll probably be happy to give them one just to go through the day.
Right. Yeah, we'll be reasonable. We get it. We ordered 25,000 masks, so we have them on hand. But kids they're not gonna want the blue cloth ones. Of course, people want to express their individuality. They're probably going to have, I don't know, hopefully a lot of Spartan ones. So.
Well, actually, it was funny. I was reading an article. I can't remember where I read it. A school actually ordered, I think, like 3,000 cloths with the kids' with the
school logo nice.
On it. The first day, everyone gets one. They'll give you one. That's yours. They'll expect you to wear it. How will bus and now, Ron, talk to me about what you guys are planning. Are you guys kind of similar to Boardman? Or are you guys kind of different? You checking them at the door, or?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about that daily assessment, because that's one of the protocols that we, both for staff and students.
Right.
And, we worked with, actually, we have a Whirlpool factory here in Marion that, went through this whole time and had to put some same safety protocols. And so we worked with them on, how they brought their employees in with those daily assessments. But it's interesting, again, how things change. So today, again, in a conversation with my health department, if you read some updates from the CDC, specifically related to kids, they're not. You can't be just focused on temperature, because a fever is only about what they found, especially with kids, is only about 20% of kids actually have a fever as a symptom that have been diagnosed with COVID. So one of the concerns that they have now is just because you take a kid's temperature when they come in and it's allergy season, you're sending that kid home who's not who's not, has not the same symptoms as COVID and those kinds of things. So, again, that just came out today. But we spent the last, month figuring out exactly how we were going to do the daily assessments as well. We went back and forth. I mean, we were this close to spending about $10,000 per school on infrared scanners, so that when we could get kids in and out fast, and it would recognize body temperatures and those kinds of things. I mean, we landed on the idea that we have a form, we have a big pad that every kid's going to get, and every day on that pad is a checklist that families have to go through. Do you have symptoms? Have you been in contact with somebody who has symptoms? How do you feel? Those kinds of things. So, and they'll have to bring that form in with them every day. But I mean, we honestly, we have problems getting kids to turn in, their signed report cards. So it's
True.
You can't always count on that either. And so we're going to have a method of kids with that don't come in with that form, because we have to track, to make sure that kids are not displaying any symptoms, and we have to nip it in the bud as soon as they come through the door. So, a lot of school systems have had that conversation lately about how to do that. But, and again, we're opening up with this hybrid model, which again is a lot different for our staff as well. I mean, you think about it. You're designing your lessons for Monday and Tuesday. In the meantime, you're designing lessons for those kids who are remote, during that time period, and then you're switching. So you're still teaching that, but you have to be aware of what kids and how kids are progressing while they're at home and being remote. So the hybrid model again presents something that our staff isn't really used to, and that's another reason why we pushed our start date back, was to give those teachers an opportunity to really plan for that as well. What does that look like on a weekly basis, and how are you determining what to teach and how to monitor what to teach?
And what are some of the things that people will see once they walk in your buildings that would be changed from last year?
Well, for us, less kids for sure. Because only 50%. And that's we've talked to our staff. We had new teachers in today and yesterday, so it was our new teacher orientation, and we talked today about an opportunity really to think differently about how we traditionally teach. I mean, you really have an opportunity to personalize some of the learning, to really build some relationships with kids, because there's less students, in a class at one time. So we're trying to highlight some of those areas to be really positive and take advantage of the situation. And so that's going to be a lot different from us. But, just like Tim said, I mean, we still, even though we're hybrid, we still, can't do lunch the same way we do. And, we got lines in the hallways, and kids are going to walk down the hallways in a direction where they're used to congregating in a kid's locker. And, teachers are always, let's go, move. I mean, we have to be really deliberate about that now, and making sure that kids are following the protocol. And my advice, you asked about my advice to families. I mean, our families have got to start talking to our kids about these protocols and making sure that they follow them, and how important it is to do that. I mean, we're not only talking about the safety of our students, but our staff as well. We have 700 plus employees in Marion City that we have to be concerned about. And a lot of our employees are in that, very vulnerable age bracket, and, whether they have conditions and all those kinds of things. So not only are we really concerned about our kids and their community, but our staff members are at risk as well.
All right, now I'll ask you the exact same question I asked Tim. Are you guys requiring masks for your students and staff when they come in?
And we, 3 days before the mask requirement, we also passed our plan that required all of our students to have masks. And we are actually supplying those masks for our kids. They'll get 2 cloth masks and a face shield. Our teachers will have that opportunity to have both. But then, again, we just got some help from FEMA, who delivered another 20,000 surgical masks to us. So we have about 100,000 masks right now that we have access to. But the cloth masks we had, they have the MH logo on them, and so they're pretty cool. But we'll also have those masks for our students who might forget to wear them, and so I feel like we're prepared in that.
Well, and I will. This is probably the biggest question I get that I've been talking to superintendents, parents, is the busing situation. That is probably one of the very biggest challenges right now, because normally you got 30, maybe 30, 35, 22 seats. 22 seats usually in a bus, two at each. Two. So how and anyone can jump in. How are you doing that? I know you're looking at 50%. Ron, you talked about AB Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday, and then Tim was talking a little bit about 5-day or in-day learning and some different stuff. So anyone want to jump in? How do you guys plan on kind of a solution for buses? Because I know you guys don't have 1,000 buses out there and 1,000 drivers to pick up 5 kids per bus.
No, you're absolutely right. Right now, like I said, we probably have 26, 27% of our kids that have chosen remote learning. So that has reduced your ridership. Of the parents that have chosen the in-person model, next week we're going to send a form out for them to declare if they want busing or not. My prediction is, probably that the rate of bus ridership is going to drop just because of the nature of it. So not only we're not going to transport that 27%, probably 50% of the 73% will choose to. A lot of kids already, parents already take that more so than ever. So our game plan is obviously 2 kids per seat, mask required, assigned seats, windows open, weather permitting. And so if there is any type of a breakout, we can do contact tracing. You have to sit with the family member if they're present on the bus. And we're talking about you fill it back to front so that you pass less students. So we're taking a look at that also. We're not setting stone in the back to front. We do like to have some of the younger kids up front, but right now that's the game plan on paper.
Ron?
Yeah, I tell you, that was a real concern of mine. I mean, we at times, we only have 8.5 square miles here in Marion City. So, our bus routes are kind of compact, and we, prior to COVID, we put as many kids on the bus and still meet the safety requirements as possible. And sometimes the young kids were 3 kids per seat. And so, you think about that. I mean, we had 70 kids riding a bus at some point in, some little confined spaces. I was really concerned about, us going back full on face to face and what that might look like at that point. But I agree with Tim. I mean, now, that we're in the hybrid model, I think we're going to be really good with.
Right.
We've already done our, surveying of our families, and they had to fill out a Google form, and we tracked all that about who's, and we're real confident right now that we're actually going to be able to meet that requirement of 2 to a seat, and be able to kind of space them out accordingly. But that was a real concern of mine going into this year was, what are we going to do with those buses? I mean, really, it's, you think about some small airplanes and what they've tried to do with that. We could not do that. I mean, if we had to social distance on a bus when we were full on, and we looked at the model, we would have been transporting kids all day long.
Right.
We would have had to bring a certain amount of kids in, go pick up more kids, go pick and adjust the schedule accordingly. So, yeah, I was really concerned about that. And I still have a concern about that, when we do go back full on and get back to some normal, what requirements are still going to be left out there in regard to that. So, we got to start thinking about those kinds of things as well.
Well, and that brings up a great point is let's talk a little bit about what has happened kind of in the past and what's kind of protocols that you guys may have in place. And Tim, I'll go to you first. I know we talked briefly. It's been in the news. One of your football players, I think was it a football team?
Yeah, a football player.
Yeah, a football player actually tested positive for COVID-19, and you guys ceased all practices at that time for that specific sport. Can you talk a little bit about what happened and what kind of the protocols that you have and what was the solution to that?
So we had one of our varsity football players tested positive over the weekend. He alerted the coach. So on Monday, we canceled practice just for football for the sport impacted. That allows, we contact the health department and we start working with them on contact tracing. So that allows the health department to do their job to find out if anyone's deemed a close contact. Close contact for any viewers means you're within 6 feet of the confirmed individual for 15 minutes or more. That's consecutive minutes. That's a close contact. If you're deemed a close contact, now you're going to have to quarantine. So you got to allow the health department to do that. You need the confirmed case, the individual to obviously cooperate, and he did. But it takes a little time. So we allowed the health department to finish that up, and then we allowed an extra day for communication out to parents of the results. We were very fortunate that no other football players were deemed a close contact. Coach does a nice job practicing in pods, so the kids aren't massed together. So if we were to have a breakout, it may only be 6 or 8 kids. But even within those pods, the health department reviewed that, and these kids were not within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more. So it was not necessary for any other football athletes because of practice to quarantine. So we're only shut down for 2 days. We plan to resume practice on Wednesday. If you can't do that, you got to shut everything down for 14 days.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big thing because Ron talked a little bit earlier about temperature. Just because I don't have a temperature doesn't mean I'm asymptomatic. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people may not understand is you can still carry this without a temperature.
Right.
And I think that goes to a great story that was out of Georgia. School district had to quarantine more than 900 students and staff because of possible exposure because of classes resumed last week. That's huge just for a school to do that. So what kind of protocols and what kind of things have you kind of put in place, Ron, for your school to really respond to something?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a major concern of ours is, what happens when a student is diagnosed or a teacher is diagnosed or multiple students in a classroom and how do we handle that? And again, I'll go back to the relationship we have with our public health department, and they've been really, really good. I mean, they shared with us the last few weeks, they've developed some flow charts about what that looks like and who to contact and how they go about doing their contact tracing. We've really developed a really good partnership with them, and we have liaisons for the health department. When the health department's notified that someone has been diagnosed, we have a liaison in each building and a liaison for the district. So that health department will contact them. They'll get the seating charts. They'll get all of the information that they need, and we'll hand that over to them. We already have that process, set in stone. And then they will make the recommendations on who needs to be quarantined and for how long. They will also do the contacts for that. Now, the school is aware of that, and we have to do our part in making sure that we notify people who need to be notified. But you got to remember, we also have HIPAA and FERPA rights that kids have too that we have to abide by. And so
huge, and that's the problem. That's huge.
Diagnosed with COVID today, and we're shutting it down. That's not the way it works. And so we follow those guidelines, and we have already established protocols for how we'll handle that situation when the health department contacts us, and we will notify parents that there has been a diagnosed case, but we are going to encourage them to follow our health department's guidelines and the CDC guidelines on what quarantine looks like and for how long. And we have to stick to that because our parents need to understand we can't kind of induce panic because 1 or 2 students or 1 teacher is diagnosed. I mean, you can almost guarantee that at some point in time it's going to happen.
Right.
Based on the data. So, we're trying to get that message out in a lot of our, the calls that we're making to parents and the infographics that we're putting up on our website, just about, what contact tracing looks like and what to do and how the district will handle when, either a student or a staff member is diagnosed.
Well, from what I'm getting is you may have a good opportunity here because if you have that A and B group going Monday and Tuesday and you find out that it was that A and B group, those kids can stay home for 14 days or staff member. So you kind of don't mix up the 2 groups and you may not get a big quarantine of more than 900 students like that. Would that be something that would happen or would not happen?
No, that was part of our planning for hybrid. When there are some districts who really thought at the beginning, maybe group A goes on Monday and then group B goes on Tuesday, but you're missing, you want to keep those cohorts together. And then, because if you do that, you have to clean in between. And so we have group A going on Monday and Tuesday. That helps with the cleaning, but it also helps with the contact tracing. So we can pretty much keep those kids separate as much as possible, and be able to have good data. And really, we want to be able to supply our health department with with as much information as we possibly can about who students and staff are in contact with.
And Tim, what are some of the things that you would be protocol-wise if something is found within your schools? Did I lose them?
Just a quick question: am I losing some? No, am I losing you guys?
No, you're good now. It was just a snag. Did you get my question?
Still have me?
Yeah. Did you get my question?
Yeah. My girls may have turned on Netflix all throughout the house, so I apologize. I want to say something Ron had said. The tough part for us is we can't announce the student's name. You know, for that football player, we can't announce who that is. Now the kids figure it out. You know, that's up to them. That's hard because parents are calling us, just announce who it is. We can't. I wish we could, but help, but we cannot do that. So, they have to trust the process, and it feels like we lose a little credibility, but we can't do that. We cannot do that. So, to go back to the protocols, really, I mean, that's what we're following, those protocols, those contact tracing protocols. So, so you can have a controllable number of people who have to be quarantined. If you don't have separation and you don't have pods or you don't have adequate spacing, then you're going to have situations where you're going to have to shut the whole building down. But if you can have controlled numbers, assigned seats, assigned cafeteria seats, so that the health department can call up that person and they can find quickly who a close contact would be, you could control the number of people who have to be quarantined. If you can't, you might have to shut down a whole building.
Well, and I think that's something that we want our kids to go back to school. I think that's everyone agrees. It's just how safely can we do it? And I think one thing that we talked a little bit about, Ron, is, and I know I'm sorry to hear, but your mom passed away from COVID in April.
Yeah, back in April. So yeah, the virus is kind of personal for me, and it's I'm always kind of amazed by some of the conversations out there about this virus, but I can tell you that my mom was 81 years old and was doing really well in her age and enjoying life. And the night before Easter, I got a phone call that she had some symptoms, and they took her to the hospital. And I was fortunate to have at least some conversations with her, but it's been kind of surreal. When typically if the loved one's sick or in the hospital, you get a chance to kind of be by their side and be there in support for them, which my family was unable to do so. So my heart goes out to a lot of those families who've been affected by this, and more, I'm learning of people that I know who have family members. And again, so I talked to my community about that early on, back in the spring, because I think people need to know that, people have been affected by this virus. And so, that the concern for us is real, and it's we want to protect our students, and we want to protect their families, and we want to protect our staff. And at the same time, we know that, we have to be able to provide them with the education that they need. And again, I'll go back to saying, for some of our students, school's a very safe environment for them. We in the spring, we probably there's probably about 300 of our students that we completely lost contact with. And, we did everything we could. In some cases, we even had to call children's services in and make sure that those kids were protected and safe, because that's our responsibility to do so. And so, we're trying to balance that, right, to keep our kids safe from COVID, but also keep them in a safe environment where they feel comfortable every day. So, again, it's had a personal effect on me. And all that does for me is kind of put things into perspective when I start thinking about, prioritizing what's important.
And that brings up a good point, is there's just not to just teaching. There's livelihood of students that we got to find, and students that we love and take care of. And let me ask you this. We have quite a bit of people watching, and we have parents, and we may have students. And I'll go to Ron, I'll go to you first, is what can you tell, what message do you want to give these students and staff and students? What advice can you give them, or just in general a message?
Our district has really kind of put together a campaign, if you will, along with some of our community partners and some of the other school districts in Marion County. There's only 5 school districts in Marion County. So we get a chance to get together on a regular basis. But our message to our community is, let's follow the protocols. Let's wear our masks. Let's wash our hands. Let's try to avoid mass gatherings and those types of things. If we want our kids in school and we want to, kind of get through this, that we all have to do our part. And so we have billboards that are going up about that. We've, started this campaign amongst the local radio stations. And so our advice to all of our families is to really take this serious, to do what they need to do. And so that we can, reverse these trends and continue to see downward trends in cases. And, there's enough research out there that says, if the virus is not spreading as much in your community, it's safer to go back to school for one. So, the more we can reduce the spread of the virus in our community, the better chance we have of getting our kids what they need on a daily basis. So that's my advice is pay attention to what's going on. Make sure you wear your mask, wash your hands, avoid, mass gatherings. And if you're sick, stay home.
Tim, same question to you.
It's going to be hard to not copy what Ron said, obviously, because that's huge. But I would add to that we all have to have patience with each other. Things are changing so rapidly. One thing we say on Monday, we may have to change that because of conditions that have changed or mandates that have changed. So I just ask parents to be patient with us. We're patient with them, and to be prepared to be flexible. I think Ron has said it a couple times. He has hybrid. He's not married to it. He's ready to switch, and we're the same way. We got 5-day in person. We may have to go to a hybrid. We may have to go to 100% remote. That may happen and may happen quickly. And do we want that? No, we want to get as much lead time. I feel for parents. My kids graduated. My youngest just graduated 2 years ago. I think I'm a much better administrator after being a parent. You feel in your heart. So I get it. I get it. It's a lot of decisions we make are really inconveniencing parents, and we wouldn't make them if we didn't believe that they were for safety. So I'm just asking parents to be flexible, be patient. Our priorities are number one, our safety for students and staff. And number two is to give an outstanding education that our community expects. And we've learned lessons from the spring. So remote learning is not going to be the spring remote learning. Like Ron said, we built that in 2 days and kept building it. And a lot of people just thought it was an experiment for a couple months and then we'd be back to normal. We've learned that lesson. I think we all have to quit thinking about 2-3 month chunks at a time. Although sometimes that's all the further we feel like we can see ahead. We got to start thinking 8, 9, 10, 12 months, a year plan. Because we're not going to come back after Christmas break and the switch is turned off. It's going to take a little bit. You got to be realistic. So we got to think long term and just work together and make sure that we're building an educational experience, no matter what parents choose, that's authentic, that's challenging, but is able to every kid's able to access that, whatever their challenges are. And Ron, I love what you said because we felt here at Boardman. I know our staff and our principals were calling hundreds of kids a day to connect. None of us want that. Our teachers want to be in front of these kids. I think we all learned the power of a teacher when we went to remote learning. Everyone thought remote learning would be the end all. Well, it serves a purpose, but there is power in human connection, and that's what the power of teaching is all about: connecting to each other face to face. And the quicker we can get back to that, it's good for all of us. But we have to realize this is the way it is for now, but this isn't going to be the way it's going to be forever. So there will be an end to this. May not be December, but we just, we'll get through this. Let us adjust, be flexible. We're going to make this through.
And the last question I have, does this pandemic change the way we teach our kids in the future? Oh, anyone can answer that question.
We always want to be history makers, be in the history books or be on the cutting edge. And I've said it to ourselves, we are. Here we are, we're on the cutting edge. You have a choice. You can look over the edge and be scared to death and back away, or you can start to build along that edge and start to push that edge a little further and build. I think, yes, there's a lot of valuable lessons. If we ignore them, shame on us. This could really transform education for the good. I still believe you need the people piece. I think that's proven. Education is about people, and it will always be about people. But I've found myself that I don't necessarily have to be locked in my office from 8 to 4 in meetings. I can do a meeting from Zoom on a back deck and be just as effective. You know,
like
what I mean?
You're doing right now.
Yeah. Flip classrooms. Projects outside the classroom. I think we got to start looking at that. That could really evolve education and make it so much better. If we just quickly go back to the 7-period day, 52 minutes, shame on us. But I think it definitely can evolve.
Ron?
Yeah, Tim really did a good job answering that question. I mean, I really think that, we've talked to our staff about taking advantage of this time too, and to learn from, this time to really, when you talk about integrating technology into a child's education, I mean, what better opportunity do we have right now to be able to do that? I mean, our kids, most of our kids, we consider them, we call them digital natives, and many of us old timers are digital immigrants. We're really just kind of.
I'm in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably somewhere in the middle, but our kids are pretty savvy with their use of technology and what they can do, and we're starting to find out that we can give our kids the opportunities to go explore and learn, kind of learn self-paced and some self-directed learning, which is probably. Some of the best ways that kids learn is by doing that. Inquiry learning is shown to be a really effective method of kids learning. And so, we have the opportunity to allow our kids to explore and use that technology to teach themselves, and we become more facilitators in their learning process, which we all know is also a good strategy for teaching. So, yeah, we're trying to take as many advantages of that, and I think too we'll come out of this with especially our younger teachers are going to have a different understanding of what some of the best methods to teach our kids are.
Those are some great points. Well, I appreciate you guys taking your time. You guys up for a little Q&A? I have some people that have submitted some questions.
Sure.
So I'm going to put it up on the screen, but I'll also say this one is from Nick. Oh, why couldn't we have this one? Will students have the opportunity to play sports in the fall? We knew someone was probably going to ask that. Anyone want a shot at that question?
I was concerned for a long time. I mean, Tim and I are both coaches, and we both had children who participated in athletics, and I couldn't imagine my kids not being able to participate in athletics. And so I think every school district out there really is striving to make sure we provide those kinds of opportunities, not just athletics, but a lot of the other extracurricular and co-curricular activities as well. I felt a little bit better even after today, after looking at that chart to see how many districts are actually going back full on and how well some counties are doing. I feel better about that. I'm still concerned about, we don't know how this virus is going to react when we actually do get kids back in school and if we're going to have to shut down. But I'm confident that we're at some level, our kids are going to be able to participate in sport. Probably not going to look the same. I mean, we may have, 5-game seasons or whatever. I told our coaches, I don't care. We get 2 games in, and that's all it takes. That's all we're able to do to give our kids that experience. We're going to go forward with trying to do that.
Tim?
Boy, it's like Ron said, I have a lot of coaching in my background. I'm a big believer in sports. As much as anyone else, this is my 33rd year in education. I think I've been to, between coaching and administration, 340 Friday night football games in a row. I've never missed one, and that streak may be in danger. I've never missed the schedule. I don't know. I really want to see what the Big Ten was doing, because I do believe that has an impact in Midwest Ohio. The Big Ten, to me, was kind of a domino, whether or not the Ohio High School. I mean, it's out of our control. I guess we could shut it down. I think I'd rely on the Ohio High School Athletic Association. They're the ones that are leaders in that. I rely on their judgment to give us direction on what we need to do with that. And I'm 50-50 right now.
Well, I know, just for the record, that the Big Ten has canceled their fall sports, including football, which not many people are very happy. I think the Pac-10 followed and said that they are now canceling their season. So now you have the ACC, the SEC still waiting for an announcement, which now you're talking about moving sports to the spring semester, or I should say spring sports. Here's a question for you. If you guys have 100% online learning, do you have any sports at all?
I mean, I don't see that. I mean, if we're in a situation where cases are, at that point where the county health department comes in and says, you have to go remote, or if that happens statewide again, just like we've experienced in the spring, if that's the case where these, the spread is on the rise, I can't see that happening. But again, I think what's happened across the state is, again, Columbiana County or Morrow County may not be the same as Mahoning and Marion County. And so, if there's an opportunity in those counties, again, where kids can play, I think we should let them play. I really do. I mean, it's unfortunate that we can't really have equity, but I mean, if we're worried about winning a state championship this year, I think our priorities probably need to change in relation to that. I mean, if we can get on the field, like I said, for a couple games, or get on the court, for a couple games, whatever that might look like, I mean, we really need to strive towards those kinds of things and maybe change our perspective on that.
Tim?
The tough part is you do see programs when they have an outbreak shut down for 14 days, and that's my fear. You get to game one and you have a rivalry game coming, and the other team shuts down for 14 days, and you're fired. I don't know. That's the part that you get into the details and you see what it actually looks like. But it's you asked about remote learning, so I want to make sure you answer the question. I don't see how you could say we got to shut down schools and go to remote learning, but we can have sports. I get it. People want to have sports. I get it. It's a passion. It's a passion in America. It's a passion I know around here, especially for Friday night football and marching band. Make sure you put a plug out there. Our marching band's phenomenal. I'll miss that just as much. Love the half times of what Tom or Jerry does, but that's a bad message. We can't have school, but we can have sports. I don't know. That's a bad message we're sending the kids.
And here's a yes or no answer. And I'll go to you, Tim. How much does your football income support most of your sports and or extracurricular activities?
You said it's yes or no, so yes. Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, we have some great gates. We play Canfield, we play Urson, we play Mooney, we play Austintown. People come to those. We fill that stadium. Mm-hmm. They're phenomenal gates, absolutely. So that helps our whole athletic program. And even if you have the season, you're not going to have those gates. It's tough.
Ron?
Yeah, same thing. I mean, we've already had conversations about how we can subsidize the athletic programs because we're not going to get the same kind of revenue that we bring in to help support those other programs. And so, definitely a concern of ours is, football for the most part brings in a lot of the revenue to help support even the spring sports. And so we're going to be faced with that, should we get to the point where we can open up again. But, so we're talking about how we can subsidize those to make sure it happens.
Yeah, those are two big issues that you have almost one or two sports that support the rest of the athletic department.
Absolutely.
So, and actually, there's a gentleman who actually asked a question. From Jim, he says, "Are fans allowed?" So if they have football, I think right now it's a 6-game season.
Right.
So are fans allowed? What's the rule?
That's a good question. I thought that as of right now, the high school athletics assistant said no. I thought is what they're saying, because we've been talking with we have a phenomenal TV studio. Our kids, I mean, it's just fantastic. I call them our mathletes. They're up. They do all our replay. They do our whole video board. It's all student run with the teacher. So I mean, we're gearing up to live stream to make sure people can see games, because I was under the impression, maybe wrong, that as of now, spectators are not allowed.
Yeah, the order that's come out, and it's not actually OHSAA's order, but it's
the Department of Health.
Yeah, it's come out from the Department of Health around contact sports and some of those that do not allow spectators. Now, the other, one of the issues that we deal with are some of the orders that are out are actually somewhat conflicting. So, these club sports and those things that are happening right now, the only requirement for spectators is that they really social distance, and you're really not supposed to sell tickets or anything like that. But if you've been to a couple of these baseball games, I mean, there are people there, and so I don't think OHSAA has really taken kind of a stance on what that's going to look like. I mean, we've heard that there's discussions about at least allowing parents to attend, or maybe each student gets a certain amount of tickets, or that you look at the capacity of your facility and then determine how many tickets you can sell. But you still have to be you're still responsible for making sure that the health department protocols and guidelines are in place. And people don't actually understand that as much as that, if you're hosting an event, you are responsible for making sure that the people who attend that event are following the guidelines. So when the health department comes in and issues a citation or anything like that, it's not going to actually be to the person. It's going to be to the facility to host the event. So you're responsible for that. So we have to keep that in mind and consideration. I personally support the idea that we need to give at least our athletes the opportunity for their parents to be able to watch them perform. I mean, it breaks your heart that, you can't see the student section on a Friday night and
right.
the Olympics that we have to control sometimes, which is actually somewhat fun. But, and I hope that will be able to continue. Remembering
the days that we went and were on the Friday night student section doing that. So
we've been doing a nice job with that stuff too.
Yeah. Next question is from Robin. Will students be required to stay in the same class in high school, or are they still going to be changing classes throughout the day? That's a great question.
It
is a great question, and it's a great idea. But I will tell you, at Boardman High School, you can't do it. We have such a diverse curriculum at the high school. There's just no way. There's absolutely no way to keep kids in classes together because of all the offerings we have.
Yeah, I agree. We looked at that. We've looked at the possibility of blocking schedules. So we only have, instead of 8 classes where students were changing classes, bringing that down to 4 at that point. I mean, you have to remember that our teachers also, when we make those kinds of changes, it's not like you can say to a teacher, hey, instead of teaching a 90 or a 45-minute class, now you're going to teach a 90-minute class and all those kinds of things. And you have to do some professional development with the staff and that. So it's not just as simple as making that decision that easily. But we may again have to continue to explore those options. I like what Tim said about patience, because nobody has the manual on a pandemic, on how to operate schools during a pandemic. And we may have to make some of those changes as we progress throughout the year if we continue to see, spikes in cases and outbreaks in certain situations. But, everybody, has some of those good ideas. It's just a matter of what you can realistically implement as well.
Yeah, I mean, that brings, you only have some people that will take an advanced course to a general course. So it's hard to substitute where they're going to go and how to keep them all in the same room.
It's just not possible. You can do it at the lower grades. K through 3, yes. 4, 5, 6, we have teaming. So there'll be minimum. But once you hit 7th grade in our curriculum, we have so many different offerings. We have different flavors, whether it's advanced or college prep. That you can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's just a lot going on. Let's see. Next question. This one's from Chris. Are younger students going to be required to wear masks? It is hard for younger ones to wear it. That's an interesting question.
And the Pediatric Association really has come out with some guidelines lately about masks. And there was some thought at one point in time that maybe students 2nd grade and under, might struggle with masks. I think that they're finding some success with younger students being able to wear masks. Again, that goes back to my recommendations, and the information that we're getting out to our parents right now is, parents and families have to work with their young students, the young children, about how to wear a mask, how to keep it on, get them acclimated to that. So you're not walking into school on the first day and, wearing a mask for the first time and trying to navigate your way across that. But the answer to that is yes, all of our students, pre-K through 12, will be required to wear a mask.
We actually, when we adopted our plan, the board gave blessing for K through 12, and I know that wasn't popular. But then the governor came out a couple days ago and supported it. So it's nice to have a little of that back. And I want to add on to what Ron said. So for the listeners who have young kids, maybe a first time school age child at kindergarten, one of our teachers was talking about he has one. I thought this was a great idea. His son loves to play on the iPad. So when it's time to play on the iPad, sometimes you have to restrict. What he does is you want to play on the iPad, you have to wear a mask. So the kids learn that he can do fun things with the mask on, and he's teaching his kid to wear a mask and not tie it to a negative connotation. I thought that was so creative. That's like Ron said. I think now's the time to get young kids used to wearing masks, not just when you're going to the store or going out and about, but just have them wear it throughout the day and kind of build up that custom to it. And I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just teaching them early what's going on, kind of getting them in the notion of, hey, when you go to school, you're going to have to wear this mask all day long.
Yeah, don't be break. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be 7 straight hours of that mask. Nobody wants to do that. So, when there are appropriate times, especially the younger they are, to find opportunities we call mask breaks. So there will be opportunities for that.
Well, I have one more question, and I'm putting it up on right now. This one is from Larry. Will the water fountains be operational?
Oh, I'm laughing because what we're talking about, when you make plans, also when you start to put them into action, you're like, water fountains. You pass them all day. You don't think about how they impact. That's a great question. Ours, the classic water fountain where everyone goes to will be shut down, but we've been fortunate enough to get grants to do the bottle filler type. We've been installing more and more of those, and that's some of the spending we're going to do. The buildings that don't have any or don't have enough, we're trying to add the bottle filler type, the no touch ones, and we'll shut off the old classic fountain type.
Ron?
Yeah, we are along with the 2 masks and a shield. All of our kids will get a water bottle too. So we have transformed all of our fountains into the type that you just stick the bottle underneath there and they get refilled.
You're really branding this year, Ron. That's good.
So you think about parents, instead of having to go to the Target or Walmart to find the 3-ring binder and the book and the index cards, it's going to be masks, water bottles.
Well, and those are 2 very big things that students are going to need, and that's a good point for parents. They may not know that hey, there is no more water fountains in the schools anymore. You got to have a bottle. You got to have a refillable bottle that you'll use every day, and that's what you're going to use from now until probably till this ends or moving forward.
You got to think whole year. Like I said, there's not going to be a switch all of a sudden we shut things off. I mean, I think that's misleading. You got to be thinking this is, we'll be in this for a while. Like I said, but we'll get through it. It's temporary. It's for now, but not forever.
Well, and you guys are ready to go for the fall and everything. Ron and Tim, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. You're always welcome on my podcast anytime to help and get the message out.
It's great being here. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Anthony, it's good to see you again. I appreciate all the work you've done in the Valley to support that through your foundation and all that work. I was always very honored to be a part of some of those events you had, and thankful for the opportunity to spend time with you and Tim tonight.
I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Check out other podcasts, interviews, and videos at Anthony V. Spano.